excellent show for you, of course. In the second hour, a woman sues her 8-year-old nephew for hugging her too hard while saying, "I love you, Aunt Jenny." Okay. But that's okay. She only sued her.
Guilty.
She only sued her for $127,000.
Yeah.
But did the lawsuit make sense? The answer might surprise you. Okay. So interesting. Okay.
It's a lot of allowance.
That's right. So that's in the second hour. Look, Lamar Odom might die. It's a crazy story. I don't know what is going on there. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Huckabee in the first hour makes racist comments. So, of course.
He's just a dog lover. Okay, we get passionate about dogs sometimes.
Right. But mainly, I can't wait to go off on the pundits. In fact, is Jesus back there? Yeah. You want to get Django Unchained just in case I decide to go in that direction? I say that and almost never go to it because I usually forget. I just start getting angry.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, anyway, we'll see if we can do that. So, John, what do you have for us?
Well, you say that you get angry, but I read on Salon that it was a very regular down-the-road show. Nothing weird happened. It's on the front page of Slater Huffington Post. Anyway, okay, let's talk a little bit about last night's debate even more, because it certainly merits it. Despite predictions that last night's debate was going to be boring because it was going to focus on the issues rather than recreating an episode from Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, it was actually a massive historic success, in fact, breaking records for viewership for a Democratic debate. It brought in 15.3 million viewers, making it the most watched Democratic primary debate in history. Previous record for a Democratic debate Politico, was in 2008, which had 10.7 million viewers on ABC. So we're seeing a gigantic jump up from that in just 7 years there.
So there's a couple things going on. Clearly, the Republican debates have juiced people's interest because they got a reality show on that side. And I admit, everybody freely admits, it's a little bit more interesting because they're so rabid, so crazy, saying one over-the-top thing after another. And you have what is arguably the largest reality show contestant in history on the Republican side. Contestant's a tough reality star. Is Donald Trump a larger reality star than Kim Kardashian? I don't know. It's close, right? He's been on for about, 13 years or so with Apprentice. So at least one of the largest reality stars in American history. It's like Hulk Hogan is running on the other side.
Yeah.
But, probably more entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. Hulk Hogan not as racist.
It's unfortunately a tight contest.
Yeah.
So some of that I think is spilling over to the Democratic side. But there was a sense of like, hey, the Republicans are interesting. Democrats, they're so boring with their policy, blah, 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 substance, right?
Yeah.
And Bernie Sanders, that's not interesting. He's going to just host. That guy never answers personal questions, right? Mm-hmm. That happens in interviews. Yeah. They ask him about his hair. He's like, so as I was saying about Social Security, right? But as it turned out, no. Apparently people are interested by Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. And there was a block of granite on the stage as well. That was
right.
Pretty entertaining.
I can't really attribute the rise in ratings to Lincoln Chafee. I got to be honest.
No.
Or Jim Webb.
No scandals on last night's program. Not a single scandal. I think that's certainly a point. I mean, the thing is about Trump and the greater ratings as a result of it, so the Republican debate got more viewers, something like 23 or 24. The second one actually got fewer than the first, which they don't talk about. He lost viewers. For some reason, that doesn't hurt him. Got more than the Democratic debate, but okay, so episodes of Walking Dead get more. Yeah, they're more exciting. They also have nothing to do with government or choosing the next. They have about as much to do as the Republican debate does. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And by the way, people also forget that there's a huge difference between the Democratic primary and the Republican primary. In the Republican primary, they're trying to get back into power, which is inherently more interesting and perhaps on some level more consequential to a Republican voter than the Democrats trying to hold on to power. That doesn't bring in people as passionately as taking over the White House after having lost it.
But overall, understand this is actually really great news because it means a lot of people are paying attention to this election. The Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be super exciting. That got 10 million views. This got 15 million views, right? And to give you a sense of this, this was the 6th most watched non-sports cable event in history.
Yeah.
That's a lot of words. Let me clarify. If you put aside sports, outside of that, this was the 6th most watched thing ever on cable.
Yeah.
That's pretty gigantic, right?
And again, less than the Republicans. Those
three are in the top 6 of all time, and they're political debates.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and look, CNN's live stream of the debate set a record for the network with 980,000 concurrent streams at its peak. So that's a lot. That's almost as much as like the World Championship for League of Legends. Like that's a lot of viewers on a stream.
Yeah,
which is really good for them.
And that's almost as much as the video views we get for the live debate. No, not really. No, ours are much higher. But no, to be
not
fair,
a live stream.
To be fair, no, their live stream was a lot higher. But that's because they had the debate.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And look, I think that this is certainly a good sign for the Democrats that people are paying this much attention, despite the fact that you don't have the ridiculous theatrics. I think it's probably a good sign for the country that people paid this much attention. Unfortunately, as we're going to talk about a little bit later on, some in the press are drawing, I think, the wrong lessons from the debate, and I worry that they're going to then put that out there and they're going to fool people into thinking that something happened last night that did not actually happen. But this is certainly a good thing, especially because it was a time of actually talking about and identifying the real problems that this country faces, and there were some big disagreements about how to face them. But there were actual possible solutions being discussed, something that there was very little of in both of the Republican debates to this point.
And at least 15 million people got to see it with their own eyes.
Yeah.
And also remember, this is just a primary debate. We're not even in the general election, and it's on cable. Usually on ABC, CBS, NBC, they get even bigger ratings, right? So on cable, for the first Democratic primary debate filled with substance to get this many viewers is fantastic.
Yeah. And one final thing. So, look, we would like there to be more than the 6 Democratic primary debates that there are going to be. Now, the DNC has decided not to do that. And we're not surprised that they're not listening to the base who wants to see it. But I wonder, why is CNN and other networks, why aren't they pushing for it more? If these are by far the most popular events that have ever happened in the history of cable, why aren't they putting pressure on the DNC? That's the sort of pressure that the DNC would actually bow down to, I think.
Yeah.
We could have gotten 12 debates. That would be amazing.
Well, part of the answer might be is that they didn't expect it. CNN was saying that it wasn't going to be this high, and so they were very pleasantly surprised. So after they got the ratings today, they might be like, yeah, see, let's go, come on, up and at them. I mean, we were seeing more debates all along.
There are going to be 45 debates this week.
I mean,
that's actually too much. Don't do that.
You know CNN, they might. You know how they did the plane coverage, right?
Yeah.
If this works for them, they're like, wait a minute, we were scheduled for another Democratic debate today, but a black hole swallowed it up. We can't find the Democratic debate anymore. Let's cover that 24/7.
We're checking the ocean now.
Okay.
Okay, you want to turn to the winner?
Yes.
The important question of the day. We're going to adjudicate it right now. Who actually won last night's debate? It's difficult to tell, because for every poll we have, with an overwhelming majority saying that Bernie Sanders had a massive win, you have a headline on a newspaper, on a website, saying, no, it was Hillary Clinton's night. She truly shined all last night. And we can see this disparity playing out even on individual websites. So let's bring up this first graphic. This was put together by the Daily Merge Twitter account, and it's showing for these 3 sources, CNN, Time, and Slate, they all have polls, and the polls all overwhelmingly show that Bernie Sanders was the winner, according to the people actually watching. But that didn't stop them from pushing the idea that, no, it was her confident sweep. Hillary Clinton won. Very straightforward. Huffington Post, I hear she leaned in. And so she won. Damn the viewers. Who cares what the people think? We're going to continue with our message. We actually put that headline up 2 hours before the debate.
Yeah. So I'm going to go off on this in a second. But first, let's acknowledge how shocking the disparity is. But we know that those polls are not scientific. They're just polls on their website. We're aware of that. But if everybody on your website says, 81% of the people on CNN's website says Bernie Sanders won, don't you feel even a little awkward? Like, don't you even want to at least...
viewers. They're on your site.
Wouldn't you at least want to note it? Like, oftentimes on the TYT app, we'll lose a poll. Like, I'll say, this is my opinion, and then our viewers will say the opposite, and I'll say, well, that's interesting. I'll note it, right? Yeah. Like, hey, isn't that interesting, right? But no, like, Hillary wins. Confident Hillary. Sweep for Hillary.
Yeah. Go away, Bernie.
Like, aren't you embarrassed? I mean, how are they not? Slate says Hillary Clinton won. And right next to it is the poll that says Bernie Sanders won by a gigantic gigantic margin, 78%. This, I haven't even gotten angry yet.
Yeah.
Let John give you more of the facts.
I looked to see if there was a tiny little asterisk that then said we actually don't know what one means, but they didn't actually have that there. How the hell? So Alternate had a great breakdown of how overwhelming the sheer number of polls were, and I went and actually added in the actual results for each one. So they say Sanders won the CNN focus group, the Fusion focus group 8-3, and the Fox News focus group. In the latter, he even converted several Hillary supporters. He won the Slate Online poll 70 to Hillary's 13, CNN Time Online poll 57 to Hillary's 11, in which Webb got 30. She came in third on the CNN Time poll. 9 News Colorado, Bernie Sanders got 11,000 votes to her 2.5 thousand. On the Street Online poll, Bernie won. The Fox 5 poll, Bernie won 78% to 15%. Even on the Drudge Report, he won 54% to her 9%, with Webb again coming in second with 25%. And so from the conservative Drudge poll to the liberal Daily Cost Online poll, 56% to 38%. So she not only did not win, in some cases, she came in third.
So there was not a single poll that didn't have Bernie Sanders winning by at least an 18-point margin.
And those were outliers. Outliers, the 18%.
Yet every single one of those sites declared Hillary Clinton clear winner. Right. All right, so drop it. Now, these DC pundits are unbearable. You know part of the reason why they declare Hillary Clinton the winner? Because they want to suck up to her, because that will give them access to her when she's president. And then they'll have an exclusive with the president, and they'll be so special, and that'll make their careers, among many other reasons. But really, the main thing is groupthink. Like, oh, yeah, Hillary's the winner, right? Hillary's the best, right? Oh, she was the front runner. We always said she was the front runner. She's losing in Iowa and New Hampshire. She got mauled in our own polls. But she's the winner. She's the winner. Shut up, everybody. Bernie Sanders is not electable. He's a kook. He's a weirdo. He's got weird hair. No way. We hate him. We hate him. Now, let me read you some tweets. Ryan Lizza writes, Hillary Clinton won because all of her opponents are terrible. What are you talking? But the people disagree. Isn't it a sad day for you that we actually do voting from the people and not from your loser pundit asses in Washington, D.C.? Alec McGillis responds to Ryan Lizza on Twitter and says, exactly. It's time for this to be admitted and to stop pretending there's a race. How can you say that? He's winning by such a large margin in New Hampshire. He's winning by most polls in Iowa. If anyone else was winning in the first two states, they'd be like, oh my God, the race might be over on his side because the national polls move after Iowa and New Hampshire. Joe Lieberman was leading in the national polls in 2008.
You mean President Lieberman?
And then he came in fifth and called it Joe Mentum and said he was in third. Okay, I mean, do you not know anything about politics? Okay, I can keep going. Here's Michael Cohen. Bernie Sanders is all piss and vinegar. Too much anger. You want to see too much anger? Stay tuned. Okay, too much rancor. Works as a protest candidate, but not as a national candidate. No. These DC guys are. It's hard not to hate them. Okay, it's. I know I'm really getting to a point. Before I was like dismissive of them, a little disdainful of them, but their smug attitude that is so pro-establishment. Don't overturn the apple cart. We love the apple cart. The establishment is great. The system is great. This Bernie Sanders is a challenge. We hate Bernie Sanders. We hate him. Piss and vinegar. No, you're the angry one. You don't know it. And if you ask them, they'd be shocked by this reaction. They'd be like, what do you mean? What do you mean? We're all great people. And in our cocktail party, we all played patty cakes and slapped each other in the ass and decided Hillary was going to win. The people on the polls. No, we have declared that Bernie has no chance. Well, it's a sad day for you that in the real world, that's not what the people on your websites think. That's not what the voters think. That's not what the people in Iowa and New Hampshire think. So I can't wait for you to be wrong.
Yeah.
So the DC pundits are useless. Okay, one last thing about that. Now, even if you thought Hillary Clinton did a little bit better job in the debate, can you think that? Of course you can think that, right? We had a disparity of opinions within a spectrum of opinion when we covered the debate live here with our 4 different hosts. right? And I actually thought she did a pretty good job. I would have given her 7.5. Really fairly solid job. There was a couple of pretty weak moments. I thought she lagged in the middle, but I don't think she did badly. And I thought Bernie Sanders did a little better in terms of style, substance, 8.5. So it's not like I thought like he blew her away or he broke her back or anything like that. But I didn't substitute my opinion for the opinion of all the people watching. These people declared her the winner as if it wasn't even close. And when faced with what actual human beings thought, they thought, we know much better in Washington than the people do. Right?
And then on CNN,
and that's bullshit. You don't know better than the people.
Well, apparently they do, because CNN actually deleted their poll. They got rid of it. They didn't like the fact that Bernie Sanders was winning by, he had 80 points to her, whatever, 9-11.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's inconvenient. Delete.
Okay, look at what the establishment does. Larry Lessig, you want to talk about getting money out of politics? All that money comes to TV. We're not interested in that conversation. CNN didn't ask a single question about that. They excluded Larry Lessig from the polling, so he conveniently couldn't get the required 1% in the polls. He was getting the 1% until they took his name out, right? And then when it comes to Bernie Sanders, no. Our narrative is that Hillary Clinton won, and she will always win, and she will keep the system exactly as it is, so we can keep making millions and then billions of dollars here. Yeah. So if our own poll says Bernie Sanders won by 81%, what poll? I don't know what you're talking about. What's the poll? What poll? What's the poll, right? And by the way, it's not the first time CNN has done this. They did the same thing on the public option during the discussion of the Affordable Care Act. The public option, they said, is not really supported by anyone. That's what their anchors were saying. They did their own poll. 74% of the country was in favor of the public option. They're like, what poll? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. No, the American people, both on the left and right, are against.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about this
and
poll.
That was a scientific poll.
CNN had a second poll. They polled 3 or 4 journalists that worked for them that want to interview Hillary Clinton. They all thought she won, so I think that's the important poll. Yeah, journalism is not just writing what you desperately want to be true, because you don't want to deal with a challenge to Hillary Clinton over the course of a campaign. That's not what journalism is. And don't do the poll then. Don't put the poll on your website if you don't care what the people think. And especially if it's not just one website, it's so many across a huge range of different websites and outlets. It's clear. Now, they may not care about Glass-Steagall. They may not care about what happens in Syria, but clearly their viewers do. And if you don't care about what they think, then why the hell are you involved in this business, where it is a dialogue between you and the people that are supposedly getting their news from you?
But you know what? I think that they have overstepped to such a large degree that all these guys declaring Clinton the winner is going to be counterproductive. It's going to backfire. I think that Bernie Sanders supporters, if anything, first of all, get a lot more animated about it, right? And whether they're show that animation in how much they're giving to the campaign, how much they're supporting him, how much they come out, how much more likely it is for them to vote. But also for the people in the middle ground. Remember, this was not viewed by just a few people in the base. This was viewed by 15 million people.
Yeah.
And when the pundits all come out and tell you, no, don't believe your lying eyes, believe me, I do declare Hillary the winner, right? I think that maybe the viewers start to go, maybe you guys are full of shit. Because that's not how we saw it at all.
Yeah, and look, Hillary Clinton there's a lot of people that love her, especially on the Democratic side, but they also think that she is as tied in with the political establishment in this country as you could possibly be. And when they see these journalists who at least want the image of being semi-independent, so obviously, so unabashedly just supporting her against all the evidence, they're going to say, oh, she's not just tied in with them, they're tied in with her. Why am I going to these sites for my news when they don't care what actually happens? And if you want to make the case that Hillary won, then actually try to do that. Explain in the article why it is that you think she won against what the regular viewers think. But I read that Huffington Post article. Hillary leans in, you click on it, and it's literally, well, she won because she made clear that she is a woman who is running for the presidency, which she did. That was one of her answers. That's the break from Barack Obama, I'm a woman. It would be historic to have a woman as president, but she has to have the right policies. You can't simply say, I'm a woman, that's the big change, and that's why people should vote for me. And that's what that first headline linked to, was that should be enough. As if Bernie Sanders, that would not be a historic first for the White House as well. For some reason, people don't talk about that.
Yeah, I was going to just mention the same thing. He would be the first Jewish president. Why is that a big deal? That's a big deal.
Because he doesn't talk about it like she didn't talk about being the first woman president back in 2008.
And by the way,
now it's suddenly coming up a lot.
And the pundits think that it's an advantage for her to be the first woman. but they don't believe that it's an advantage for Bernie Sanders to be the first Jewish president, right?
Yeah.
They don't have anything against him being the first Jewish president.
Yeah.
They just don't think it's an advantage.
Exactly,
They have decided that in their group thing.
That it's irrelevant. Yeah,
So,
and look, that's just the one Huffington Post article. That's not the case that most are making. The most are simply not making a case. They're not explaining why she won. They're simply saying, oh, yeah, but he is still a socialist, as if he didn't address it. It's extremely frustrating to watch because we were watching it.
Anderson Cooper made it very clear that he was a socialist. He went after it time and time again. And apparently, 81% of the people on CNN's website, and they had a lot of people on their website, still thought Bernie Sanders won. So maybe they like that kind of talk.
Maybe.
No, but I decided, me and my buddies down at Georgetown decided that he was unelectable. Now, I'm telling you, man, I got a sense after reading all these articles that this is not going to help Hillary. It's going to hurt Hillary. In the old days, and I don't want you to get mistaken here, this is an important point. In the old days, when TV just announced something, unfortunately, it was over.
Yeah.
So Al Gore won that debate, the first debate against George W. Bush, by same kind of polling. Not only this, but they did some scientific polls right afterwards. He won it by every account and by large margins. And all the TV guys came out and said he lost because he sighed, right? Mm-hmm. Just made it up. Well, they didn't make it up. RNC made it up. Fed them talking points through Fox News, and all of the assholes went along with it and deceived the American people. Yeah. And then later, when asked about it, the American people said Al Gore lost. Because they had been brainwashed by the TV pundit assholes that he had lost, when in fact, they thought he had won. Yeah. So, but those are the old days, and they think they still live in the old days. Nowadays, even though a lot of the internet sites went along with this too, and I'm deeply, deeply disappointed in Slate, Huffington Post, etc. They're supposed to be better than this, right? Yeah. I get it when the mainstream guys, the Washington Post, the Time, all that CNN, like Time and CNN do this. I get it. Time Warner's on Hillary Clinton's side. We got it, right? But still, the internet exists. This information gets out, right? Yeah. And when it gets out, it only makes Hillary Clinton look worse because it's, those establishment pricks, they're on her side? Yeah. I guess that means that she's not going to give us much change, right? So they keep poking us and poking us. And you know what? We might at some point go, all right, well then fuck you, we're going to vote for Bernie Sanders.
I just thought of another possibility. I mean, this, like, figuring out who it was that won is such a big thing, and to get it so clearly wrong, maybe these writers, maybe it was their first day, maybe their dad had just died, maybe they were brought in to fill the spot of another writer, maybe why are you being so rough, okay? They're just trying to do their job, and their dad just died. Poor like a chicken.
I can't stand it, man. I can't stand it. I used to be, like, hey, they're a little I don't know why I didn't dislike them more before, to be honest. I mean, how many times have these people deceived us on a massive scale? George Bush has won the state of Florida with 537 votes. Anybody with any background in statistics, and I assume you had someone with background in statistics on your election team, I hope so, would tell you that that's a statistical tie. There's no way you could declare a winner in a state with all those millions of votes. 537. Even if Bush had won by 537, which he turns out he didn't, he lost, right? But he became president because these media pricks declared Bush the winner, okay? And then they declared that Iraq had attacked us on 9/11. 7 out of 10 Americans thought that because that's what the media kept telling you, right? The Republicans say Bush says connection, but Cheney says there's a connection, there's a connection, there's a connection. Right?
Very true.
So they've done this a million times. They are the establishment. Stop watching TV. I don't mean shows. Game of Thrones, God bless, we all watch, right? There's plenty of lovely shows on TV. We'll do a show on TV one day, and it'll be even greater, okay? But the cable, it'll be okay. But the cable news guys, don't watch that shit, that dribble for a fucking second. Yeah. Am I clear enough on that? You're clear. Because they're but nonetheless, I'm going to continue. Because their point is to mislead you. They don't do that despite their best intentions. They do that because that is their intentions.
Yeah. And we'll see. There's another one coming up in a month. We'll see if this is a pattern. It's frustrating to see.
Okay, I can't help it. I'm going to say one last thing, even though, I can't. So, I mean, look, you know me, I want Lessig, right, in terms of, focusing on the issue that matters most, getting money out of politics, free and fair elections. And I was frustrated that they didn't talk about it almost at all in last night's debate. To be fair, Bernie Sanders brought it up a couple of times, a little tangentially, but at least he brought it up. No one else did. Okay. But it makes, and I don't know what Gore's going to do about blah, 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 right? But it makes me want to say, okay, forget all that. Feel the fucking burn, okay? It makes me want to root for Bernie Sanders 1,000 times more. I'm telling you, it's totally counterproductive. Yeah, okay? Maybe I'm wrong, although you put up my record in punditry versus all of them. Take the best fucking pundit on TV, and my record is probably SE Cup. Literally 100 times, like, I don't know, 10 times better. How many times better could it be? Because I look at, you know what I do? I'm so fucking smart. I look at the polls. Hey, what do the American people think? Wow, that's really fucking hard. I must be a goddamn genius, right? Whereas Chris Matthews and others come out there and they dribble and drool and the American people, they know Hillary Clinton won. Why do you fucking say that? Based on what? Because I'm saying it. Because I say it over and over. Fucking eyes in a fucking cocktail party. Okay, fuck those guys. Yeah. Alright. I gotta stop. Okay, let's go to the next story.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Lincoln Chafee. At last night's debate, Lincoln Chafee had a very forced, very unfortunately awkward performance, and Sean Hannity actually aims to outdo him with what will be an even more forced, even more awkward act of indignation to Lincoln Chafee's tax policy in this video.
When all said and done, and a rich person pays all of his taxes, out of every dollar he makes, how much should he be allowed to keep?
And what's your definition of a rich person?
Like
a billionaire?
Say the top 5% of wage earners.
Okay, so we're talking about over 500,000?
Yeah.
No, probably even over 200,000.
Okay.
So it depends. What are we talking? Maybe 60%?
So you think they should be able to keep 40 cents out of every dollar?
Well, we have to pin this down a little closer. My tax proposal is for those making over 750,000, they'll pay 45%. That's my tax proposal.
But then they also have a state income
making
tax
over 700
and property taxes.
That's right.
Hidden taxes. Yeah, so maybe if you're lucky, you get to keep like 40 cents out of every dollar. Hang on. I gotta.
Now wait a sec. Just to be clear, that's over 750,000.
Hang on. Let me just throw my money away.
$250,000.
Give it to you. I'll give it to the government. Hand it over. Why should I work?
Okay,
He doesn't. He doesn't work.
Yeah, you're a talk show host. Believe me, we know.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay. So, I don't know who was more embarrassing there. So, first, let's do the obvious. Sean Hannity. Apparently, he thought Lincoln Chafee was a stripper, thinking of rain over there.
Yeah.
Okay, and saying, why should I work, man? The government's just taking my money. Yeah. By the definition of taxes, the government takes some percentage of your money to do things like build roads so that we can drive towards one another. Okay, so we can go to work and you can get paid, right? Because we know this. The question is, how much should the government take? Now, if you happen to disagree that 45% is the wrong number and you think it should be 35% or whatever you think it is, there's like, oh, why do I work? Why do I work? Oh, here. Oh, right? Okay, that's a dumb point. But Lincoln Chafee, what are you doing? You're embarrassing yourself out there, right?
It's a little bit weak.
Now, look, Chafee, I really admired him in a lot of ways because he had the courage. He was a Republican senator at the time the vote on the Iraq War, and he was the only Republican to vote against Bush and Cheney and against the Iraq War. It really took a lot of courage, and he's done a lot of things right in his career. But the run is weird. Okay, like, that's an interesting case to make, but then last night in the debate, he was so lackluster. Then he goes on Sean Hannity's program. He does, hey, dude, what's your tax plan? Like, what do you mean, hey, what's the rich? Don't you have a definition? Apparently you do, because later you mentioned $750,000 is your cutoff. By the way, $750,000 is not the top 5%. It's way less than 1% of the country. So it's the rich of the rich, okay? So, but apparently Chafee doesn't know that. And then he says 60%, then he says 45%. Come on, up into Adam, dude. You gotta know your own tax code.
I think that he's a policy guy. He's not a politician. So he has the data in his head. Feed me variables. I will then punch it into my spreadsheet and I will give you how much you'll pay. Rather than making the case in a concise way for why your tax system is the right way for the country to go, which, say, a Sanders would have done. Instead, he wanted to simply spit out answers as if he was being tested on algebra or something like that.
But even so, he wasn't ready for that algebra test. I mean, if he's a wonk, well, then you should know who the top 1% are. More importantly, you should know what your own tax plan is. Who does it apply to? People above $750,000. Then say that. He said, "Oh, you mean the rich? The rich in my plan, $750,000 and above, have to pay 45%, not like maybe 60%." What was that? Why did you say maybe 60%? If your plan is 45%,
his dog just died, and he just got to the interview. I mean, why are you being so rough on the guy? Like, I don't know. I love the logic of, well, oh my God, if I was being taxed 40% or 45%. And by the way, really fast before I get to my point, Hannity was saying, okay, so you're saying I'm going to pay 40% or whatever. Then there's the state tax, and there's the hidden taxes, and all of that. So for some reason, when it's the rich being taxed, they remember that federal income tax is not the only tax, and that there's all these other taxes. But when we're talking about the fact that the federal tax rate for the poorest people in America is zero, suddenly they're paying zero taxes. I can't think of any other taxes if I try. They're all gone. Only when a rich person is being targeted, then, oh my God, I have this list of 100 different taxes I have to pay. But anyway, it's the idea that if I was going to be taxed at 50%, well, why the fuck would I want to make $100 million? I'd only get $50 million. I'd rather not work at all, make $100 bucks. That's better than the $50 million. It's so stupid. Yes, everybody wants to make more money than they're making. But having higher taxes on the rich is a recognition that even though you have been paid handsomely for the work that you've done, you did not do it on your own. You relied on a country of people who you may not ever acknowledge, you may not ever meet, but they made this system possible under which you could prosper in ways the emperors of ancient times never could. That's why you have to pay more money, because it's not just fucking about you, it's about everybody else who makes the system work day to day.
Look, at the end of the day, though, I think Lincoln basically assassinated himself. You gotta go, son. Wrap it up.
I think, yeah.
This is not working. I mean, it was a nice effort, I guess. It made some sense. Like, hey, well, that's interesting. There's a Republican who saw the light and became a Democrat and had courage of his convictions and stuff. But it's getting kind of embarrassing out there. Yeah. I mean, as John said in last night's debate show, even Rick Perry winced a little bit at some of Lincoln Chafee's answers.
He's a block of granite with the consistency of Jell-O. I think that he should go pick up the bills that Hannity threw on the ground, which is more than probably all of his campaign contributions so far. Take that as a consolation prize and hope for a position as Department of Energy or something like that. I feel bad for the guy. He seems like a nice guy. I would let him run a toy store. He just obviously is not cut out to be president of the United States. I'm sorry, maybe 100 years ago when you were on TV, but that guy's not becoming president in 2015.
But yet, still neither one of us is as harsh as Jimmy was last night when he said he looked like a clown that had shown up with and forgotten his makeup.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, really fast, can we put up, just, it doesn't need the sound, the two shot of him and Hannity? Because he looks like somebody, and I want to see if everybody else sees it. Could he look more like Steve Doocy there? That is Steve Doocy, I think. That might be the same person.
That's interesting.
No, that guy's smarter, though.
It's Steve Doocy's uncle.
He looks so Doocy-esque. Anyway, okay, we should probably take our first break. We're well past the halfway point.
Indeed.
Yeah.
When we come back, we've got an interesting twist on a couple of these stories, including a racist joke by Mike Huckabee. So some more debate coverage, and of course a story about guns. All right, we'll be right back. Alright, back on the air, Chris, Jake, and John with you today. Everybody check out youtube.com/think tank for John's show. Rebecca Armstrong writes in, my day's been crazy. I need some fiery jank to make it better. Can do. Okay. Already did. Hope it helped, Rebecca. Sarah Leo writes in, what if TYT hosted a Dem debate? Indeed. What if? Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be interesting?
I think it might be disrupted when you stop asking the questions, go on the stage, push someone away from a podium, then begin making the case for why you should be president. That doesn't usually happen at debates.
Could be interesting. Okay, Annette writes in, they've called the damn emails line a, quote, gift to Hillary multiple times, referring to the mainstream media. They twist even something he beat her down with. Now, look, I don't agree with either one of those things. He didn't beat her down with that line. He won the crowd with that line, right? He was like, look, I don't care about that. I want to talk about policy, right?
Because he knows that he can win on the policy.
That's right. And I don't need to beat up Hillary Clinton with the email story, right? Because he's not a politics as usual guy. To say that he helped Hillary with that line, I mean, it makes me question their intelligence. Like, it's not like, or maybe at this late juncture, I'm still naive, right? Like, do they actively, are they trying to figure out how to hurt Bernie Sanders and get Hillary Clinton to win? Like, I think it's groupthink. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think that if you ask them, they would genuinely be shocked at the idea, right? But how can you be so stupid as to think that a line that he got a huge ovation for helped Hillary? No, it helped him because it made him look more substantive.
Yeah, or to some extent helped both. I think that he's the one who benefits the most because it shows that he doesn't need that sort of sideshow bullshit to win. But certainly she would like to not have to talk about it anymore, and I don't want her to have to talk about it anymore. It's bullshit. That's why we've done 5 videos probably so far saying it's bullshit.
All right, Michael Gibb writes, since Senator Sanders has too much anger, America doesn't have enough anger. They should be as angry as Bernie at the oligarchs in charge. But, Michael, I think they are, and that's what mainstream media doesn't get. They're not angry. You have to understand something. Most of the guys in the media make a good living, okay? So they're not at all angry. They'd be much angrier at some sort of change in the system. Yeah. The system has been wonderful to them.
Yeah, they have so much money they can afford to throw it at Lincoln Chafee.
John Chris Lopez writes in, once Bernie wins a few states and gains the lead, the media will say, no one saw this coming. Mostly because they're idiots. That's what John wrote in. Hard to argue. Here, I saw it coming. Okay? And then Arkivian writes in, Jake shouldn't be too disappointed in the media. It's one of the reasons TYT is so awesome. Good point. No, and thank you. We appreciate that, and we are an alternative, and that is why we've been successful. We're not successful because we're some sort of genius talk show host. We're successful because we're doing something the mainstream media isn't. We don't have a monopoly on the truth, but we're trying to be as honest as we possibly can with you guys. Yeah. And I think you guys can see that, easily. That's it. There's a line I use when I give speeches in the industry and stuff. Okay. That's the great thing about authenticity. You can't fake it. Okay. So when CNN says, "Oh yes, now I will be authentic,"
Martin O'Malley tried.
Right. What are you gonna do? So anyway, no way, right? Since Sean Hannity quitting is a pretty good argument for higher taxes. Like, if you charge higher taxes, then I'll stop working. Oh, great.
Yeah, but he already said he was going to leave America if Barack Obama won re-election, right? Yeah.
Oh, well. Okay.
Yeah, and he said he would be waterboarded or something or other. Anyway,
we move forward.
Okay, let's do that. As Mike Huckabee moves backwards into the dark depths of American history. Mike Mike Huckabee spent last night sending out a series of extremely embarrassing tweets, perhaps trying to court the few remaining right-wing racist voters who haven't already pledged support for Donald Trump. First off, he started after the question about do Black Lives Matter or all lives matter. He said, racism exists because we have a sin problem in America, not a skin problem. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
Oh, that's so clever.
Wait, who is the sinner?
The racist, like you.
Exactly. No, I would hope that that's what he means, but it's lost there in his wordplay. That's not a solution to the problem, identifying, okay, so you're saying they're sinful as opposed to just racist. Okay, we still have to do something about it.
And even if they're...
And he doesn't want to.
Even if they're sinful about their racism, they're racist, and hence they are doing it because of the color of the skin of the other person.
And he's
so
also
still a skin problem.
He's also saying there that, stop focusing so much on people's skin color. Stop focusing on racism, focus instead on sin. Stop focusing on something that we can demonstrate exactly how this hurts people and how it actually functions and what we might be able to do to fix it. Instead, talk about some sort of protoplasm, some sort of ethereal concept that we can't actually do anything about because it exists only in the minds of angels. That's why he wants to talk about that. And he's free to talk about that in a goddamn church, but he's running for president. That's the unfortunate part. But more offensive than the racism stuff, he then turned to some animals. He said, I trust Bernie Sanders with my tax dollars like I trust a North Korean chef with my Labrador.
He's a Lord mercy. I'm surprised he didn't call him Chinaman.
I get what he's doing there. His entire the series of tweets was rife with stuff that was probably in some sort of cheap stand-up act from the 1990s.
1950s.
Maybe. No, there were some backwards comedians in the 90s, I guess. So he was attacked on that. And what I love about his defense of himself is it's very reminiscent of Ann Coulter's defense during your recent debate with her. He said, leave it to liberals to ignore injustices and atrocities of a totalitarian nation on human beings and put more importance on a nation's diet, which includes grass clippings and canines.
No, but, okay, and he also wrote in another tweet.
Stop defending dictators, Jank.
Exactly. He said, poor liberals think it's racist to deplore brutal dictatorship. No, but you see, the stereotype isn't that Kim Jong-un eats dogs. It's that Koreans eat dogs.
Yeah.
And that's a stereotype that goes back to the Korean War and when we did propaganda against the North Koreans. Now, you want to say that North Korean dictatorship and leadership is wrong, but there's no argument whatsoever. Everybody agrees. I think almost 100% of the country agrees with that. Liberals are probably angrier at Kim Jong-un than you are because he's abusing human rights, depriving his own people, and he's authoritarian. You guys kind of like authoritarians. You think Putin's strong and all that stuff, right? So there's a part of conservatives who are like, ooh, Kim Jong-un. Ooh, that's a pretty good strength he's got there, right? So we're all agreed on that, you schmuck. So don't misdirect. You made a joke about the people, not about their dictator, okay? Dictator jokes have at it, Hoss, right? But you made a racial joke about the people in North Korea.
Yeah.
So don't try to hide it and misdirect it.
That's the weakness and the cowardice of saying, oh, you're talking about this other general thing. It's the clitorectomies that Ann Coulter was talking about. No, we know exactly what we're talking about. You apparently have the boldness to say it in a tweet, but not to actually stand up to criticism of what you said. He went on to say, facts, North Koreans eat dog, and Bernie Sanders wants to spend $18 trillion of your money. What's so hard to understand? Poor liberals, no sense of humor, no sense of reality. One thing that's hard to understand is why you continue to throw around that $18 trillion fact that has already been disproven. $15 trillion of those dollars are the dollars that we would already spend on healthcare over the course of a decade, not additional spending that Bernie Sanders wants to spend. It's simply the spending that is already going on that we would put in a different direction. But they keep throwing around the number. Okay, Jeb Bush wants to spend $100 bajillion. Donald Trump's tax spend would cost us $3 cojillion. I'm just going to keep saying it. Maybe it'll end up on Huffington Post.
By the way, another trick from Ann Coulter's bag of tricks to say, liberals have no sense of humor. Wait, no, but let's be clear. Are you joking or are you not joking?
Yes.
Because now you've made 3 different references to how North Koreans do actually eat dogs.
Yes.
So then you're not joking. So what do you mean they have no sense of humor?
Yeah.
Right? Another misdirection. Like, oh, yeah, I'm going to say something horrible. If you're offended by it, I'm going to pretend I'm joking. You actually secretly love what I said against Asians, then I wasn't joking. They really do eat dogs.
Serious,
Liberals, yeah, I got those Asians, right?
That's the dark side of on my policy, and I think you have a similar one, of wanting to give people a lot of leeway if they're comedians. It's that jackasses who are not remotely interested in comedy will use that as a shield to protect against the criticism of the things they actually believe that are horrendous.
Finally, let us get to the irony of Mike Huckabee talking about eating dogs and abusing dogs. Because back in 1998, his son David apparently hung a stray dog from a tree until it died while he was working as a summer camp counselor. Now, the sins of the son shall not also be passed on to the father, but the father, with his power in his home state, because remember he was the governor of Arkansas, was accused on leaning on local officials to prevent an animal cruelty charge against his son.
Yeah.
So you went out of your way, used and perhaps abused your power to make sure someone who killed a dog cruelly in an unbelievable way got away with it. Now you have the nerve to make dog jokes?
Yeah.
Okay, you're the Michael Vick of the Republican Party, and then you're going around talking about how Asians eat dogs.
Yeah. So I looked into it. I mean, the problem is that if what he did is making sure that there's no actual investigation, the problem with that is that then there's not a lot of information. So I looked in and tried to find out as much as I could. The dog, that did happen. The dog did get hung. The actual reasons why it happened, it's impossible to say because the
Is there a
investigation
good reason for hanging a dog from a tree?
No, definitely not. I'm just saying I wanted to find out exactly what ended up happening, but perhaps because of the efforts of the governor, we were not able to do that.
That's the problem with liberals. Like, we're too decent. You're trying to figure out, well, was there a reason? And we're not 100% sure that he covered it up. He was the governor and he leaned on public officials. But is that why they didn't investigate? Like,
maybe it was their first day.
This guy's like, oh yeah, Bernie Sanders just spent $18 trillion. It's like the North Koreans eating dogs.
Yeah.
But look at the uneven playing field we live in America, where liberals try to be decent and reasonable and resort to facts, and the other side's like, to punch you in the nuts, and they say, you nut puncher.
As your nuts are literally still hurting from being punched. That's true. Yeah,
Is that
a
a thing? Is a nut puncher a thing? I think I might have made that.
You say it, everybody knows what you mean, so it's a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a thing now.
Exactly. Yes.
All right, we move forward.
Mike Huckabee, no nut puncher. Okay, let's move on to something different. In a rare case of a gun store being held liable for the crimes committed with guns that they sold to someone they should not have sold them to, a judge has ordered a Wisconsin gun store to pay $6 million to two police officers who were injured with guns that the criminal should have never had. Now, this ruling came in a negligence lawsuit filed by the officers against Badger Guns, a shop in suburban Milwaukee that authorities have linked to hundreds of firearms found at crime scenes. The lawsuit said the shop ignored several warning signs that the gun used to shoot the officers was being sold to a so-called straw buyer who was illegally purchasing the weapon for someone else. During the purchase, Collins, this is the person who bought the gun, initially checked no on a federal firearms transaction form that asked if he was the actual buyer of the weapon before a gun store employee told him to change his answer to yes, the lawsuit said. Now, Collins was apparently paid $40 by another guy to buy the gun. And what's amazing about that is that despite the fact that he went in to buy the gun for someone else, was paid to buy the gun for someone else, when asked if he was buying the gun for himself, he still went to check no originally. It's not the smartest criminal there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of criminals are not the brightest bulb there are, right? I mean, when you go to become a straw man purchaser, it turns out that you don't really need an Ivy League degree.
Yeah, apparently.
Hey, son, are you buying the gun for someone else? And God knows if they're underage. Yeah, that's what it's for.
Yes, no. What's the answer? I don't know. Yes. Now, the guy who actually ended up getting the gun is Julius Burton. He was riding his bicycle on a sidewalk when the two officers stopped him, and that led to them both being shot in the face. It's one of the reasons so much money is being given out. This is Officer Brian Norberg and Officer Graham Kunich. Here's a description of what actually ended up happening to them. One bullet shattered 8 of Norberg's teeth, blew through his cheek, and lodged into his shoulder. He remains on the force, but said his wounds have made his work difficult. Kunich was shot several times, resulting in him losing an eye and part of the frontal lobe of his brain. He said the wounds forced him to retire. And as I said, it is actually a large amount of money that Badger Guns is being forced to pay. Jurors awarded the store to pay Norberg $1.5 million, Kunich $3.6 million, and punitive damages of $730,000. Now, this gun store has already closed down. It's been replaced by another. But that is a very large verdict against them. It's one of the few areas of liability that you actually get them on when they knowingly sold it to someone who they had cause to believe would end up giving it to someone who might commit a crime.
Okay, you said the gun store closed down, but that's true technically, but understand the shell game that's being played.
Yes, that's true.
It's the same owner and the same family who owns the store. They closed it down and said, okay, now we are opening a new store at the same location selling the same things, but with a new name. So this is not responsible for whatever lawsuits might come later. Okay, and these guys do it all the time. Authorities, according to the Associated Press, have said more than 500 firearms recovered from crime scenes had been traced back to Badger Guns and Badger Outdoors, making it the #1 crime gun dealer in America. Okay?
How can the NRA support that?
I mean, they're like, oh, golly gee, all our guns wound up being in all these criminals' hands? I mean, when the criminals walk in, they're like, oh, don't check off the wrong thing. Here, let's check off the right. So now the NRA defends this law, which made it very hard to win this case. They won the case anyway. The cops did, because they're cops.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you shoot someone, a normal citizen, you have a much harder chance of winning the case. There's a shooting in Sandy Hook where the victims are suing, or Colorado victims sued and lost, right? They say, why did you sell the weapons to this crazy guy? They're like, hey, we got immunity because of this law passed by Bush and the Republicans.
Yeah.
In this case, there is one provision in the law that says if you think you're helping make an illegal gun purchase, right, that one that you know is illegal,
and they know they have a history of it here,
right, and in this case, the guy told him, no, don't check off that box, check off the other box. Plus, then you go to the jury, and you've got 2 cops shot in the face, right?
That's a difficult one to lose.
Right, and they even gave punitive damages. You're so guilty, we're attaching punitive damages to it to make sure no other gun dealer does this anymore. But you know what? The NRA fights against all of this. NRA, I got a question for you. You really going to fight against those 2 cops who got shot in the face?
They are.
And your idea is, oh no, the way to beat a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, both those cops had guns, right? It didn't stop the guys from shooting them in the face. It's a little hard to recover after you had your face blown off and your eye socket is missing. Okay?
Yeah.
So this whole idea, good guy with a gun and that will fix it. No. You know what might fix it? Is if you shut down stores that know they're selling to criminals and do it over and over and over again, and you make them pay a heavy price for it, whether they shoot a cop or just an average citizen.
Yeah, and the fact that this can go on makes the few gun regulations we actually have, that makes them out for the sham that they actually are. When you can do this sort of thing, you go to this store that's going to sell you the gun, even if you're a foaming at the mouth lunatic, they'll sell you the gun, then what the fuck does it matter if Chicago has harsh gun laws? You can just go to a place where they desperately want to arm you for your next crime, and then you bring it into Chicago. Yeah, now Julius Denton is serving 80 years, the sentence for this, and we often will say, we talk a lot about police brutality and how they treat people, and when we say that, it's that they shoot and kill or beat the shit out of people who were not armed, were not causing any sort of problem, didn't deserve it. In this case, they can beat the shit out of them if they want. I think that's totally fair. And there's an acknowledgement that the police do face a lot of danger in certain situations. But that doesn't mean in all situations.
And by the way, and when they do face that danger, who wants to protect them? We do.
Not the NRA.
But not conservatives.
Not the NRA. Yeah, the NRA loves to say that they're all American and they care about your freedom. Not when it comes to shooting cops in the face, they're fine with that. And not when it comes to terrorists, people on the terrorist watch list getting guns. They fight against them being stopped from getting guns. They get to talk all day long about how guns are great, but then sometimes on the periphery, when terrorism is brought up, when cops' lives are brought up, it's shown that they don't give a fuck about America. They give a fuck about selling you a gun.
All right, one last story. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do that. Planned Parenthood announced this week that they would no longer be accepting compensation for fetal tissue samples. Now, perhaps they did that hoping that would bring an end to the witch hunt that's currently trying to shut them down. But it's America, so it's not going to do that at all. Here's John Boehner response to their change in that policy. While Planned Parenthood and other organizations may try to publicly distance themselves from the gruesome industry of selling of fetal baby parts, today's announcement does not change the facts of the investigation. It does not change that there are no facts in this investigation. David Deliedin, an anti-abortion activist, said, if the money Planned Parenthood has been receiving for baby body parts were truly legitimate reimbursement, why cancel it? This proves what CMP has been saying all along. Planned Parenthood incurs no actual costs and the payments for harvested fetal parts have always been an extra profit margin.
So I have to say it. We told you. We told you yesterday. We covered the story of Planned Parenthood deciding to change their rule on this, and we said it's going to be perceived as the people who were doing the video were right, and they made you change the rule. And of course, liberals in D.C. being what they were, like, no, it's going to appease people. And they said, quote, we're not caving, right?
We're not caving.
Yeah, first of all, when you have to say we're not caving, you're already in a lot of trouble,
yes.
Okay? And Dawn Lagwins continued, I do hope that they will change their ways, but I'm not hopeful. They are being held hostage by the far-right anti-abortion extremist element that runs the Republican Party process. I don't see that they have a way out of it. Now, I hate that framing, too. It makes it seem like the Republican Party is the poor victim being held hostage by a certain element within the party. No, they are the perpetrators.
Yes.
They're the ones who are doing it to you.
You're the victims.
They are the anti-abortion extremists.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, look, the Hill covered this story, and look at all the verbiage around this story that gives you a sense of what went wrong. They say House Republicans are pressing ahead with their probe into Planned Parenthood, despite the group's decision to abandon the most controversial aspect of its fetal tissue program. So despite the fact that you did it, they're going ahead anyway. Later, John Boehner says that he pledged to deepen the investigation. When are you going to learn? When are you going to learn? When you give in to them, they don't want less, they want more.
Yeah.
They think, yes,
Leading.
mission accomplished. We got them to bend again.
Yep.
We should hit them harder. And in fact, in the second paragraph, the Hill explains that they were, quote, bending to pressure. That's a direct quote. And then Boehner also said about the idea of Planned Parenthood changing this rule, he dismissed the move. Of course he dismissed the move. And I'm going to keep on going. Chaffetz, who's one of the Republicans who was attacking Planned Parenthood, he said this was a, quote, a good, tangible result for us. Okay? And he said the GOP investigations that got this good result are far from over. See, you rewarded them.
Yeah.
You rewarded the trolls.
They look
Don't
bad
feed
before.
the trolls. It's the oldest lesson there is. You feed the trolls and they're like, yes, we got them to change their rules. Let's attack harder. I'm not done yet. Okay. David DeLayden, who led this campaign against Planned Parenthood, said he was quick to claim victory. You have given victory to the people who came in with these doctored, edited tapes. They did a hatchet job on you. You took out the hatchet from your back and hit yourself with it. Okay? And then the guy's like, oh, I didn't think you were going to do that. Great, I claim victory.
Awesome.
Right? And he said that
Tangible results.
And he said when Planned Parenthood changed their rule on this, there was nothing wrong with the rule in the first place, okay? It was to get fees for transporting fetal tissue going to science. The people doing the scientific research were giving a nominal $45 to $60 fee for the transportation. There's nothing wrong with that rule. But when Planned Parenthood changed that rule, this guy who made the videos said it was, quote, an admission of guilt.
Of course they're going to see it that way.
Of course it's going to be perceived that way. When are liberals in D.C. ever going to learn? Now, the rest of us liberals and progressives out here in the rest of the country, we don't agree. We don't agree with your tactics of bowing your head and bending to pressure and caving in. We don't agree. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. We're so tired of you giving in to Republicans at every turn. And every time they come after you with a hatchet job, oh, I'm sorry. Fuck it, don't say sorry anymore, man. God damn it, we're sick of it. Go harder against them. Say, now they took it from 6 clinics who were doing this for science, so you can do research and save lives. Now it's down to 2 clinics since the so-called scandal.
Yeah.
I'd have done it in 12 clinics. I'd have done it in 24 clinics. Every time the Republicans open an investigation, I'd say, I'm doubling the number of clinics that are doing fetal tissue to scientists.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm going to do a campaign where I raise money to make sure we can do more scientific research.
Yeah.
Come at me again, bitch. Come at me again, right? But they don't do that. They don't do that. They reward the people who attack them by giving in to them. Don't feed the fucking trolls. We're sick of it.
That's what's so frustrating also about the Hill. Despite the group's decision to abandon the most controversial aspects of its fetal tissue program, that has led to to cures and saved millions of lives. That's what, like, if you were Planned Parenthood, you say, you know what, your doctored videotapes are absolute bullshit. But I'm glad that you brought up the fetal tissue research, because not enough people know that our contributions to that have led to vaccines that have saved the lives of fetuses that people wanted to bring into the world, that have saved literally millions of lives over the course of decades. They save mothers' lives, they save kids' lives. You want to shut that down? We're expanding it in the way that Cenk was saying.
See,
they could have done that.
Look, dude, you say, why do Republicans want to kill fetuses? Why are they so against science? Why are they against medical advancement? And then you bring out a woman whose baby was saved by this scientific research. Come on, it's not that fucking hard. Figure it out, okay? And then you bring her out, you bring out a dozen of them. Cecile Richards, they invited you to the Congress, they grilled you for 5 hours, right? You should have come with a dozen women whose babies were saved by this scientific research and said, hey, you Republicans, you want us to stop funding this, helping this research?
Yeah.
All these babies would have been dead because of you. They never would have been alive because of you. You want to go? No, I'm going to save these babies no matter what you do. I'm pro-life, you're anti-life, right? What's wrong with them, man? When's the last time a progressive said anything remotely that strong in Washington? It makes me want to fucking run. What's going on?
Next head of Planned Parenthood, Cenk Uygur.
By the way, how much would they hate me in Washington? Hate me. I mean, Grayson says about 40% of what I say. Not even. I'd say 20% of what I say, right? And they're like, oh, Grayson. I mean, they cannot say Grayson's name without spitting, right? And so, fuck them. Fuck them. Go harder. Give me 10 Graysons. Give me 100 Graysons.
Yeah.
And ramp it up a little bit. But you know why it happened, right? If you don't, let me fill you in. Because money flows to weak Democrats. Okay? Money flows to strong Republicans and weak Democrats, because that is exactly what maintains the current system. Right? The system does not get disturbed if Republicans attack strong and Democrats give in and go, okay, oh, you're right, I'll tax this for the rich, oh, you're right. Oh, no regulations, okay, you're right. You think it's an accident that the money does not flow to Russ Feingold, Ellen Grayson, etc., to the strongest Democrats? It flows to the weakest Democrats? I don't mean small donors. Small donors give a lot to Grayson, Sanders, Feingold. I mean the large donors. The large donors don't give them that much money. The large donors spend all their money on the weakest Democrats. You think that's an accident, right? It's not an accident that the system wound up creating a whole caste system of weak, pathetic Democrats in Washington. That was the whole point of the system. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. I'm here to, we're going to lighten the mood a little bit, although we have a super sad story in a second. I have poll results to report here.
Oh my god.
Okay, first, should snitches get stitches?
I can't believe we asked you guys that in a poll.
33% said yes, 67% said no. And you might think, oh, 2/3, 1/3, like 3 people voted or something, right? No, 831 votes. Right? And 33%, 274 people were like, I don't know, snitches should get stitches.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was amazing.
Who do you think won last night's debate we asked on the TYT app? No, this doesn't seem to be right. I think it's saying 96% thought Bernie Sanders won. So if I'm in the mainstream media, I'm going to say, obviously Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. It's so incredible.
Okay. Uh-oh. This could be a thing.
Oh my god.
It was amazing. All right, here we go. Member shout-outs. Michael Dionysius. I believe that's the name, and that is a badass Greek name. 2064. I believe it's Greek. If it's not Greek, I'll be surprised. Okay. Tori Wood is member number 2634. Michael and Tori, you guys are awesome. Good post-game for you guys today. We'll do Newt Gingrich. The secret way that he backed out of the interview I was going to have with him. Okay. And then I had another inside story for you guys. So I'll figure that out. I'll give it to you. Okay. Mr. Red Penguin writes, "Stin, not skin." That sounds like a weird porn reference, referring to what Huckabee wrote. And then, who else do I have for you guys? Your mama writes in, "Truth of why this case was won," referring to the cops suing over the guns that were sold that wound up shooting them, was because of public sentiment and deep pockets of police unions wouldn't be the same otherwise. Now, it's true, the police unions are obviously super angry about this, put a lot of muscle behind it, and they wind up winning the case. But that's a great thing. You know, police unions, when they shelter the police from case of police brutality, are terrible. Police unions, when they help cops who got shot in the face, are fantastic. That's what a good union should do, right? And then finally, Walter Mathilde says about Planned Parenthood, "An apology is a confession of wrongdoing, and wrongdoing must be punished. Planned Parenthood is surprised Republicans are energized now." Jeez. right? You know, I don't know if you saw the last story.
Oh, I know. And it makes me so furious at Cecile Richards. Does she not know how politics works?
No, none of them do.
It's incredible. She's been the president of Planned Parenthood for how long? They will take any concession as a way to attack you. Stop being an idiot, okay? I need to write about this. I need to write a column about this because I need to let it out.
And it's not just her. It's not just Planned Parenthood. Apologizing to them and giving in to them is going to lead them to respect you and leave you alone. You don't know the first thing about a bully, man. Okay, here's what you do. You punch a bully in the Adam's apple and then see what she does. What?
Damn.
Okay, alright. Anyway, let's go forward.
Alright. We start off with some devastating news today. Former NBA star Lamar Odom was found. Let me start that again. Former NBA star Lamar Odom was found unconscious at a Nevada brothel, and he remains unconscious in a hospital as a result of alleged drug use. Now, right now, there are few details as to which drugs he took. Of course, there are lots of speculations because of the fact that he has dealt with substance abuse issues for a very long time. However, those who worked at the brothel claimed that he had taken a herbal supplement similar to something like Viagra, and when authorities found him, again, he was unconscious and was rushed to the hospital. Now, he was married to Khloe Kardashian. In fact, he's still legally married to her, so she's now making decisions in his case. There have been a number of really disgusting, critical reports about her and her family as a result of this. Whatever you think about the Kardashian family, please put that all aside, because what Khloe Kardashian is going through right now, what Lamar Odom's family is going through right now, is unquestionably devastating, and there needs to be a little more when it comes to it. Now, 4 of Lamar's organs, including his kidneys, are failing. As reported, he's had a series of strokes in the hospital and has heart problems as well.
And this is, they say, and TMZ is doing a lot of this reporting. Obviously, they cover entertainment, and they say that he has about a 50-50 chance of living. And the more that his organs shut down, it creates problems for other organs, and it becomes a vicious cycle. And they're not sure if he had brain damage in any of the strokes. They don't know yet, but that's also possible. So there's a lot to worry about here. So, look, I'm going to make a policy point about this, because that's what we do. We try to have interesting conversations around things that are in the news, and obviously it's a tragedy. But beyond that, look, we argue for drug legalization all the time. That doesn't mean that you should take every drug out of the roof, you know. So part of the reason we argue for drug legalization is because it actually reduces people taking illegal drugs, right? Now, in this case, so I don't know if it was the vitamin supplement. Obviously, we don't know yet, right? I don't know if that's legal, illegal, right? But he clearly had a drug addiction that he's been wrestling with for a long time. You could take the money from legalizing, go put it more towards awareness. And this is not a theory. Portugal's done it. Many other countries have done it. And drug use has gone down, not up. So don't forget, like, as we say, hey, marijuana should be legal. And I think all drugs should be legal, because it only creates gangs and more crime to try to make it illegal. Doesn't mean it's a good thing.
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't mean it's a good thing, but here's what happens when you legalize it. So some people might think, well, isn't it counterproductive to legalize all these drugs if you're trying to combat drug addiction? Actually, no. Right now, since we've criminalized all of these hard substances, oftentimes when someone is caught up in an addiction, they don't seek the help that they need because they're worried about being criminalized. They're worried about, these tough-on-crime laws that are going to be thrown at them as a result of that. Now, when it comes to Lamar Odom, he's had a history with meth use and lots of hard drugs, not just marijuana. So this goes way beyond the scope of, the marijuana conversations that we've had on the show before. But it's important to have resources available to people so they can get the help that they need. And he's been dealing with this drug addiction since the early 2000s. He had a few suspensions in the NBA because he tested positive for drugs. Again, this is something that he's been dealing with for a long time. His best friend, fairly recently committed suicide. He's going through a lot, and it's such a devastating story to hear that he's going through this, that his family's going through this, and we need to come up with real solutions to help people in situations like this.
Now, I mentioned marijuana and other drugs. I don't want anybody to get confused. He doesn't have a marijuana problem. He has a hard drug problem, okay? And so one last thing. He's rich, he's famous. A lot of people think, being famous will cure you of your, whatever it might be, your insecurities, whatever ails you psychologically, and everybody's got different issues, right? Turns out it doesn't, okay? And money doesn't do it either, because he had plenty of both, right? Now, at the same time, I do get frustrated at people who are in a situation. Yeah, easy for me to say, I don't have the issues he has, right? And I didn't live the life that he did, right? So I'm not trying to judge him. But I'm just saying, if you do have a lot of money, fame, or whatever these advantages are, and who didn't want to play for the Lakers, and have this great, great life, or what seemed to be a great life? I feel like then you've got a responsibility to the rest of humanity to enjoy the great gifts that you have, right? And I wish that he could have found a positive way to do that, and maybe he recovers and this snaps him out of it, and maybe he does wind up living that great life. But for all the people who don't have money, try to enjoy it, man. I know that it's easy to say because I didn't grow up in his life, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that he had a whole host of issues no matter how much money he had, right? But so many people don't have what you had. Just try to at least, have great gratitude for it and try to get the most out of it. I'm not even saying give it away. I'm saying, at least, enjoy it. Enjoy your life.
Oftentimes when people have drug addictions, it doesn't matter what privileges you have, the opportunities you've been given, how great your life is. It takes hold of you, and it's very easy to not only forget, it's not even a factor in your thinking because you are taken over by these substances, and I just really hope he recovers. I don't know, this is just such a heartbreaking story.
Don't do hard drugs, man. What are you going to do meth for? Don't do meth. That's crazy. The best case scenario is you rot your teeth away and you go through hell and then you recover. That's the best case scenario. Don't do meth. Don't be crazy. You want to smoke pot? Have at it, Hoss. Have a beer, smoke pot. Don't go down this road. It doesn't end well. I mean, if Lamar Odom, with all the money and fame in the world, couldn't recover from it, what chance do you have?
All right, moving on to something else. Recently, Jennifer Lawrence penned an essay talking about some of the sexism that she's experienced in the entertainment industry. Now, this was a response to the Sony email hack that happened last year, and she wanted to make the case that a lot of women in the entertainment industry don't necessarily get paid the same as male actors, and it might not be because of discrimination. It might have to do with the way women negotiate how much they get paid for these projects. Now, I'm going to read some portions of what she wrote, the more powerful portions, and you can find this on Lena Dunham's Lenny blog, where she talks about sexism and things like that. So Jennifer Lawrence writes, "When the Sony email hack happened and I found out how much less I was getting paid than male co-stars, I didn't get mad at Sony. I got mad at myself. I failed as a negotiator because I gave up early. I didn't want to keep fighting over millions of dollars that, frankly, due to 2 movie franchises, I don't need." So she brings up a really good point. And Sheryl Sandberg got a lot of heat for this when she mentioned it in her book, Lean In. Women feel uncomfortable negotiating their salaries, and they feel uncomfortable talking about money, and I know it from firsthand experience. You don't want to seem too aggressive. You don't want to seem unlikable. You don't want to seem like someone who's being a brat or someone who's being greedy. Men tend to be much better at negotiating their salaries because they have been told that they're entitled to more money, right? Whereas women, and you need to be likable, so don't be too aggressive.
So I only half agree with that, to be honest, because I fear that it overgeneralizes, right? So I've been on both ends of that equation many, many times, right? And yes, sometimes men are a lot assertive and they come in and say, this is what I want, right? And that's that, right? And nobody ever thinks, oh, what a bitch, right?
No one ever thinks
nobody says that, right? They think
they
oh,
think, whoa, he's strong.
Right.
What a strong man.
Right. Now, so I get that. At the same time, there's a lot of guys who are worried about asking for more money. A ton of guys. I would say more than that's the case than like a guy comes in and says, oh, I want more money, right? Because we're all human beings. We're like, oh, is that rude? Is it too much?
Yes.
Am I, yada, yada. I mean, I don't know. Whenever I've been on the end of the equation where I'm asking for money, I always feel like, am I asking for too much?
Oh, it's the most uncomfortable thing. And look, I don't think Jennifer Lawrence is saying that it's much easier than for men, and that men are just overall better negotiators. I just think that men tend to be more comfortable being assertive, whereas women have been criticized very openly for being too assertive, right? And, just speaking from personal experience, I remember getting hired as a freelancer to contribute for another network, and they had asked me, what do you expect to get paid per segment? And I asked Steve like, what do you think I should get paid? I was thinking about asking for something ridiculously low. And I remember thinking, like, oh, this is ballsy. I'm asking for a lot of money. Steve was like, no, you need to ask for 3 times that amount. And I was like, no, they're not going to hire me. There's no way. When I asked for that amount, first of all, I gave them a low number and then a high number, and I was like, you guys decide. Of course they're going to go for the low number. I'm the worst negotiator, right?
No, that's
on
the most clear mistake of all time.
Because I'm like, okay, if I give them 2 options, at least I won't have to worry about them not hiring me. You see what I'm saying? Like, these are the things that go through your mind. You're told that being assertive is going to be a bad thing, and you're going to be looked at as a bitch.
So again, I think that you're tilting the scales against women because of some of the preconceived notions that we put in people's heads with women and men. But I'm telling you, overwhelmingly, my experience is that assertive people are uncommon, okay? The much more common thing for men and women is to worry about seeming like you're asking for too much. And context matters. So if you're from the Ivy League schools, in my experience, right? They come in asking for everything because they're like, what do you mean? I'm God's gift to humanity, right? And so I ask for this, right? And of course I should get it, right? Yeah. And if the guy who might be doing much better but is not from a great school, I'm just using that as one of dozens of examples I can give.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can I get this, right? And so it's not just a man and woman thing. It really, and so, and by the way, a lot of times the part of the equation that nobody ever talks about is people do come in and ask for totally unreasonable things.
Do they?
But definitely.
So you've had people come into the room and like put their balls on the table and like, here are my balls.
Yeah, and I was like, and I'm not interested in
okay, fair enough.
So that happens too. I've asked for too much. I've had people ask me for too much.
Yeah.
Both sides of the equation. And then they go, no, that's unreasonable. Fuck off. So there is something legitimate to worry about, right?
Yeah.
So it's a human thing more than it does. It leans a little more. In fact, it's not a disadvantage for women as much as it is a slight advantage for men, because some of them are told that it's okay to be assertive.
Yes, fair enough. Okay, and also, I want to be absolutely clear about one thing, because context matters in this story. And that Sony hack indicated that she was getting paid less in the movie. It was like a 70s theme movie. I'm forgetting.
American Hustle.
American Hustle, yes. So she was getting paid less than her male co-stars in that movie. But to be completely fair, okay, to Sony in that case, or to her employers in that case, her role wasn't as big as her male co-stars. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So, like, I think that, first of all, she was already getting paid millions of dollars. It's not like they were paying her, like, $50K, and her male co-stars were making millions of bucks. Her role wasn't as big in that movie. I'm being fair.
No, I actually think that she's, funny enough, I'm going to say something that she was worried about in the first place. I think she's over-complaining a little bit, right? Now, not because she makes millions of dollars. I get why she thinks that, oh, that looks bad, like, I complain about, but no, you can. You just have to find what the marketplace is, right? So Alex Rodriguez doesn't worry that he's being paid too much money. It's outrageous what he gets paid. he still gets it, right?
Yeah.
But her role is much smaller, I think, than her male. Colleagues in that particular movie. I saw the movie. Their roles were larger.
Now, if the movie was Silver Linings Playbook and Bradley Cooper was making way more money than she was, then we're having a conversation. Because her role was just as important in that movie.
Well, even so, he had the theoretically more challenging role, right? But, I mean, whatever.
What do you disagree with that?
No, because he had the disability and stuff. But
so did she. She had a mental
a little bit. He was a little bit more mental. Anyway. Okay. Anyway, overall, I totally agree with you, right?
Yes.
So, and now finally, there's another part that I disagree with what she said. So, she said that when she was having a discussion with a male colleague, she said something blunt, but not over the top or super offensive, and the guy took a little bit of offense from it, and she interpreted that as, if a guy had said that, nobody would have thought twice about it. When I say it, hey, why are you being so aggressive? And she said, quote, I don't think I've ever worked for a man in charge who spent time contemplating what angle he should use to have his voice heard. Because she was in charge in that situation, and she was trying to figure out how should I use my voice.
She's never met Tom Hank, who used to work at TYT and thought a lot about how he would come off.
A lot of guys think in work situations, wait, what is the appropriate way to say this?
They do.
Some people don't think about what's the appropriate way to say it, and they often make a mistake.
Yes. Okay. Right? So I think you're right and wrong, because I think that the way a woman comes off hurts her way more than it hurts a man. I mean, look. Let's think about it on a macro scale. Okay, with presidential elections. Okay, just about the 2008 election and the way Hillary Clinton was perceived versus the way any other male candidate was perceived. She was considered what? Shrill. Her laugh was considered shrill.
No.
I mean, it's just the way that a woman comes off if she happens to act the exact same way a man acts. I'll give you another example. On this very show, go to any type of video where Jake and I disagree about something passionately. Jake disagrees with me. He gets a little loud, as he should. Like, that's what makes this show interesting. Jake is passionate. If I get very heated about something, I'm emotional. Okay? So those words matter. Those perceptions matter. There's definitely a difference.
And I don't know why you're getting so emotional about this. So, I mean, if you could just bring down the shrillness for a second. Okay. No, and I hear you. So what I'm saying is that does exist. Yes, they definitely did that with Hillary Clinton. Now they're very careful about it, right? But in the beginning, back in 2008, et cetera, when she ran for Senate, no question they did that. I've seen the YouTube comments you're talking about. It exists. I don't have a question about that. But don't discount that being overly assertive for guys also has a disadvantage for the minority of guys who are. So in my experience, it's certainly possible, but I haven't had a woman at work overstep her bounds and get in somebody's face and cause a problem, right? Some have danced near the edge, but hadn't happened yet, right? Whereas I've had a lot of dudes overstep their bounds and get way too aggressive, right? And then that's a real issue. So it's not just an advantage. It could also be a disadvantage. And so, like, oh, yeah, Mr. Strong gets a huge salary. No, sometimes Mr. Strong gets fired because he's being a dick.
Yeah, and look, it really depends on the workplace, because we can't draw conclusions just based on our personal experience here at TYT, right? Because you're not a regular boss, let's keep it real, and you're a lot more fair when it comes to gender expectations and things like that. Whereas, just calm down, okay? But in a lot of other workplaces, I think what she's mentioning in her essay is very true, and we're lucky that we're kind of shielded from all of that. But I don't deny what she's gone through, and I don't deny that it is a lot more difficult for women to negotiate higher salaries.
All right, and obviously, I'm 45 years old, man. I've lived a life, right? So what I'm saying is not just about TYT. I've worked at a dozen places. So I've seen the spectrum, and more often than not, I've been on the other end where I was the employee, and I had to figure out. But I'm telling you, last thing on this. So don't dismiss what she's saying. It is the experience of a lot of women. At the same time, doesn't mean she's right about everything if you ask me, right? But if you're in the workplace, I do have one note for all of you, right? Don't think that assertive is, by definition, the right way to go, right? So if you are concerned about how you talk to other people at work, you should be. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Whether it's Jennifer Lawrence or her male colleague or something, hey, be considerate in how you talk to people. Like, oh, it's wrong! That's always the best way to talk to somebody at work. So oftentimes, the much better way to go is, hey, this is how I saw it. How did you see it? So we can come to some sort of conclusion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too much to ask for a man or a woman.
All right, fair enough. All right. A 20-year-old student at Oxford University has resigned from a number of different student organizations after she confessed to pursuing sexual contact on 2 different occasions without consent. Annie Tariba is the student in question here, and she does say that she's going to seek help from some of her past experiences and some of the past things that she's done wrong. And she wrote the following: at this year's NUS Black Students Conference, I had sex with someone. The other party later informed me that the sex was not consensual. I failed to properly establish consent before every act. Then she said that that was not an isolated incident. She continued to say, in a separate incident, in my first year of university, I was alerted to my inappropriate behavior while drunk in a club where I touched somebody in a sexual manner without their consent. Now, let me get this one thing out of the way. I have looked through everything that I possibly could to confirm that she is gay. I haven't gotten any hardcore confirmation on that. However, she is the leader of a lesbian rights organization, or was the leader of a lesbian rights organization at Oxford, and it seems like articles are implying that she's a lesbian, and I just want you guys to know that, okay? So I don't know what her sexuality is, but just know that it's
Right.
very unsure.
And this whole thing is so lib. Everything in this article, in this situation at Oxford, is so lib that you can't be positive.
Yeah.
It's possible that she's straight, but the leader of a lesbian magazine, right?
Yeah.
So now, it doesn't really matter for the purpose of the story. We just want to get all the facts for you guys. Now, what does matter is what she did. Now, we don't know the facts of the specific instances because nobody's talking about them, right? She doesn't mention them. Her victim doesn't mention them. And I hesitate there because I have my issues with this story, okay? So, I think people complain about political correctness too much. 9 out of 10 times is somebody who's saying, hey, can you be decent to other people and not gratuitously offend them? But sometimes there is political correctness run amok. This is close to that instance.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
See, I would agree with you if I just knew more about the story. So she's very vague about what she did. The victim hasn't come forward to share his or her experiences. I don't know what happened, right? So it's hard for me to say, oh, she's being too politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that in some cases, especially when you're in your early 20s and in college, you get drunk, and what does it mean to ask for consent before every single action, right? So does that mean that every time I touch someone's shoulder, I have to ask for consent? Every time I kiss someone, I have to ask for consent? Every time I straddle someone, I gotta ask for consent? Come on.
Definitely the latter.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. Fair enough. But also, what does that mean? Does it have to be explicit, verbal consent? Do you have to, can I now touch your shoulder? I don't know what happened. Again, I don't know what happened. I don't mean to minimize what allegedly happened to this victim. I just need more details.
Right. And so I want to be clear, too. It might have very well been sexual assault. I mean, she's apologizing for it. Why don't I take her word for it, right? But there are some context clues that make me question the state of affairs overall on college campuses. Now, this happens to be in the UK, right? So, for example, and to be clear, most of those codes, to answer your questions, it's okay to have nonverbal consent.
Yes.
Right? So, leaning in for a kiss is nonverbal consent. You don't have to sign a contract for it. So a lot of people like to attack that, but it's most of the time way overblown, right? But if you're drunk and you grab somebody's ass, no, that's too far, right? So you didn't get their consent, you just grabbed their ass or straddled them. Right?
Yeah.
Now, when everybody's dirty dancing at a frat party, well, the lines aren't so clear, right? So, okay, now, in this particular case, she says, there's just little things there's apparently things called liberation spaces at Oxford.
I don't know what that
I don't know what they are, right? It just feels like what do we go in there? You are liberated. You are liberated. Okay, I'm making fun and they're going to hate me for that, and there's probably a good reason for it, but it just sounds super lit. I'm just keeping it real, okay? When she explains what she did, she warns people this could be triggering. Okay, so this is the latest thing on campus.
Yes.
Anything that could be in any way offensive to anybody on the planet, the warning, trigger warning. Come on, we're adults. You don't have to trigger warn me. A 13-year-old isn't reading this. Okay, you're on a college campus. We're all adults. I don't need a trigger warning. So they're grating on my nerves at this point, and you can hate me for that, but I'm telling you what I feel. Okay, and then, but more importantly, to the point of this story, she says, not only did I did not properly establish consent before every act. It depends on where your line is. It depends, right? But she said there that the person complained. She said the other party later informed me that the sex was not consensual. Well, it would have been incumbent on that person to inform you at the time, right? Now, again, there are vague lines there. So that doesn't mean she has to scream, she has to do something physical. No, of course not, right? But at the same time, I don't know, how much does she not? If you had no idea, you go in for a kiss, she kisses you, you do acts, she does acts, you guys have sex, and then afterwards, the next afternoon, she's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, that wasn't consensual. Oh, no. Okay.
Well, yeah.
So it depends.
And it also depends on alcohol consumption, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they were both drunk and it turns out that the alleged victim here had so much to drink that they couldn't consent, but the alleged aggressor, was also drunk and didn't really realize that consent wasn't really possible in that situation. I mean, these are all factors that make the situation a lot more complicated, and it's hard to draw conclusions based on her apology letter, because again, it's very vague, you don't know what the details are, you don't know how much alcohol is involved.
And by the way, her fellow libs at Oxford did not accept the apology. They said it was rape apologism. And that,
really interesting.
Right,
yeah.
They said that no, this is no apology for sexual assault, it should have been called what it was, and this is outrageous, and she didn't apologize nearly enough, and we don't
She's
accept...
stepped down from everything that she's doing.
She won't even enter the liberation spaces, whatever they are, right? The liberated spaces, you won't even enter them because she has violated the code. And the code, I'm telling you, everything from the story oozes, the code might be a little too harsh. Like, that they might have made drawn some of the lines where they shouldn't have drawn the lines, okay? But for the purpose of this particular story, we're going to reiterate for the 18th time, we don't know because we don't know the details of what they did and did not do that day. But I will say this, not about this story, but overall, if you gave nonverbal consent that day and everything was hunky-dory, you don't get to change your mind the next day. That's what infuriates me. And I don't know that happened in this case, but the way she wrote it, and again, it's her perspective, not the victim's perspective, that's really important to remember. The victim might have a completely different perspective on it. You can't come back the next day, the next week, the next month, and be like, oh, in hindsight, I changed my mind about what happened there, and I've decided that you sexually assaulted me. No way.
Dude, I feel like it gets scarier and scarier to have any type of sexual interaction with anyone. Especially if you're on a college campus and there's alcohol involved. It gets really, like, the lines get very blurred, you know? And I don't know. I don't know what I would do in a situation like this. I don't know how I would handle the situation. But it is scary. It is scary because people think that consent is black and white, and oftentimes it is, right? But sometimes it's not so black and white, and it's hard to decipher whether that consent is really there. And it's easy to say, like, well, you know, if there's alcohol involved, then no consent. But a lot of people do drink alcohol before they have sex, like, to loosen up.
Yeah, I think that it's happened throughout history.
I don't know.
I think it's happened in approximately 68% of college hookups.
Yeah.
Like, the first time people hooked up, maybe 88%. So now we're going to get into, okay, yeah, but, you know, how drunk were you? Look, some of that you got to get into, right? You can't have sex with an unconscious person or anyone near unconscious, right? But then if you're talking about, well, no, 1.5 drinks was too much, it therefore vitiated her or his consent, which she decided a couple of days later. Hell no, right? So this, I don't know, man. It's going down a road which is weird, right? And remember, last thing on this. If they overdo it, the other side is going to roar back and say, oh, nothing's ever rape, right? oh, these guys are full of shit. It's all the liberal garbage. No. She drank. Who cares if she's passed out? Whatever. She gave consent earlier. Fuck it. And there's going to be the pendulum's going to swing back in the other direction.
I mean, that pendulum has already swung in the other direction.
I know this is a response to how bad it was.
Yeah.
Right. But don't overdo it, because then I'm worried that it creates the boy who cried wolf situation.
Yeah, where people don't ever take rape seriously. And rape is serious. It does happen on college campuses far more often than people want to admit. And so, yeah, you're right, Cenk. I think that it's important to differentiate between clear cases of rape and sexual assault and cases that aren't necessarily rape or sexual assault. And, if you guys can remember, we were really, really harsh on Vanity Fair, Rolling Stone, and their coverage of that alleged rape at Virginia University. University of Virginia. I was going to say Virginia Tech for some reason. You cannot take instances of non-rape and make it seem as though rape occurred. I don't know if that's what happened in this particular story, but we have to be careful with this because, again, there are real victims, and their cases should be taken seriously. I don't want non-stories to distract from that.
All right, let's take a quick break here. We'll come back. We got more interesting stories for you guys, including an app that was supposed to catch shoplifters. Guess what it caught instead? Non-stop string of black. Okay, so we'll tell you all of that. Cenk with you. Bill Wessel writes in, I lost my youngest brother last spring because of drug addiction. It's a monster. Sad to see it happen to Odom. It's awful to watch. We hear you, Bill. Really sorry to hear that. The Gaming Pegasus 187 writes in, anytime Cenk goes Django Unchained or Anna gets heated about something, It's actually a great tool.
Yeah, I agree. I like it when we disagree on things.
Yeah, or just if you're animated about something or not, or if I'm animated about something. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry, I give you redemption back, sorry.
Okay.
Alright, anyway, Seth Wooten says, I guess I'll have to sign up as a member because I absolutely must know about the behind-the-scenes Ann Coulter stuff. Ooh, good point, Seth. So, we covered that post-game ago. That was on Tuesday's show. No, Monday's show.
Our last post-game.
Right, our last post-game. And then today we're going to do Newt Gingrich behind-the-scenes, too. And so that's tytnetwork.com/subscribe. tytnetwork.com/subscribe. And then, Connor, this is funny. All right, Jenk just triggered so many people by saying, screw trigger warnings. I'll be in the bunker. #triggered.
Okay, one quick thing about trigger warnings. I'm tired of coddling people. Okay, get the fuck over it. I'm tired of the offensive, like, oh, I'm so offended. I get it. I get offended. But I don't need a fucking trigger warning. I can handle it because I'm an adult, and you get offended, and then you get over it. It's that simple.
Yeah. And you get to call out people who offended you. Like, Huckabee's tweet on the dogs and the Koreans, right? It's an offensive tweet. I didn't need a trigger warning before it.
Jake, you're about to read something a little offensive. Are you going to be okay?
Okay, let's do it. Just calm down. Be adults. Okay. All right, guys. Let's move forward.
All right. A number of retail communities in wealthy areas are now coming up with their own apps in order to and report potential shoplifters. The only problem with these apps is it turns out that a lot of the retailers are using it for racial profiling. Now, there are specific apps in different areas, and I'm about to tell you what they are. The application Sketch Factor, which invited users to report sketchy people, faced allegations of racism in both DC and New York. Other social network roiled Oakland, California, when white residents used Nextdoor.com to cite suspicious activity about black neighbors. Taking it even further was GhettoTracker.com, which asked users to rate neighborhoods based on whether they thought they were, quote, safe or a ghetto. Now, it turns out that Georgetown now has its own app as well, and this app has some statistics behind it that are very troubling. The Operation GroupMe app is stirring up controversy in Georgetown. Georgetown retailers have dispatched more than 6,000 messages that discuss suspicious people. A review by the Business Improvement District of all of the messages since January, more than 3,000, revealed that nearly 70% of those people were black.
Of course, they were going to report black people, not actual shoplifters. So it's super discouraging when you see the stats, right?
Yes.
So in Georgetown, what percentage of the population is black? An overwhelming 3.7%.
That's it. 3.7% of the population there is black. Just to give you some more stats, there is about 20,464 residents there. Only 800 of them are black. Okay, so if you're going to make the argument that, well, yeah, black people are the ones who commit the most crimes, so of course they're going to be the ones that get reported often. No, I mean, there's a huge disparity between the population in Georgetown and the number of people that get reported on this app. Also, oftentimes they do get profiled because the people who get reported through the app aren't actually shoplifting. We'll get to that in a second.
So not only will they write in African American possible shoplifter, watch out, but sometimes they'll take pictures. Okay, so the images, they studied those as well. The images have shown more than 230 shoppers, more than 90% of whom are African American. Known thieves, one retailer wrote, besides pictures of 3 African American women, without specifying any evidence. Look out, right? So 70% of the time that they mention a possible shoplifter, it's a black person. 90% of the time they took pictures, it was a black person. Okay, one woman who was black who works at one of these shops pretended to be taking a selfie and took a picture of people she thought were shoplifters in the background. She sends out the picture and they're like, "Yeah, of course, the shoplifter," smiling into the camera. They're like, "No, she's the employee."
It's amazing.
Okay.
No, and the language that they use to refer to, the so-called shoplifters is disgusting. Let's go to graphic number 16. What did they look like? A True Religion employee in May last year asked an American Apparel retailer who had reported a theft. Ratchet, the American Apparel worker replied, using a slang term for trashy that often has a racial connotation. LOL.
The real LOL. So I'll give you one anecdote here that gives you a sense of what goes wrong sometimes. In this story in the Washington Post, they explained that a tall, elegantly dressed African-American man had gone into a store. He had distressed jeans on because they're hot and hip, and they probably paid way too much for that.
Yeah, people pay a lot of money to wear clothing that looks worn. Right. It's kind of amazing.
Right. So they're like, oh, guys, black guy in ripped up jeans.
Yeah.
Right? Gray scarf he had on, a long brown coat. Now, wait a minute. Those sound pretty good, right? And one of the retailers writes in on the app, he just left, headed towards 29th Street, about 6 foot, tats on neck and hand. Very suspicious, looking everywhere. And it turns out there was a reason he was looking everywhere, because he was a significant shopper. Someone else writes in on the app, he was just in suit supply, made a purchase of several suits and some gloves. Okay, so the guy is looking around everywhere because he wants to buy your stuff. He was just in the other store and bought many suits.
Yeah, and look, here's the interesting part about that anecdote. So oftentimes we'll have discussions about the way people carry themselves, the way they dress, and of course there are certain stereotypes that come along with the way that you present yourself, right? Regardless of what your background is or what your ethnicity is. So, for instance, you've made the argument in the past that if you're a black person and you walk into any type of establishment wearing a suit, you're going to be treated differently than a black person who's maybe wearing like saggy pants and like a really big baggy shirt or something like that. But even in this case, here's a guy who's wearing like perfectly fine clothes. Like he doesn't look like a threat in any way, shape, or form, and he still gets profiled.
Yeah. No, I've actually made the argument that if you walk in a suit and you're of any race, you're going to be treated, generally speaking, much better.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, it turns out, in some cases, of course, if you're black, even that doesn't help.
Right.
Right? And so, an interesting upside of the app became these interactions, though. Number one, it helped us track what people were actually thinking and doing and saying to one another behind the scenes.
Yeah.
In the old days, they just tell one another, and it wouldn't be documented. But now it's in the app, so you could actually go back and study it to see what kind of stereotypes in there. And this is super important. Very, very few of these cases led to arrests. So they were wrong an overwhelming number of the time. Now, and by the way, not every case that there's not an arrest doesn't mean they're wrong. It could be the shoplifter came in, or a guy came in, didn't wind up doing the shoplifting because somebody took a picture of him or something, and he left the store. I get all that, right? But still, the number of arrests were tiny. So it was mainly just the assumptions of the people in the store, right? That doesn't mean that the black people didn't shoplift there ever. Of course not. I'm sure some black people shoplifted there. I'm also sure white people shoplifted there, right? But it goes towards the assumptions more than anything else. But at least now we know it because it's in the app. And there was at least a little bit of interesting blowback in that other people would be like, whoa, wait, that's our employee. Why are you making those assumptions? No, wait, that guy just bought 3 suits from us. Why are you making that assumption, right? And at least it spurred a little bit of a conversation that brought it out into the open a little bit more.
Yeah. Look, and the great thing is that now you have this case study and you can take the data and actually improve your own perceptions of people based on it. Whether or not people do that is an open question, right?
And that we'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, one last story for you guys.
All right, this one
and this was a doozy.
I was going to say a doozy.
Oh my God, we're going to say the same thing.
Justice!
Oh, crazy bananas.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah! Alright, I was waiting for it.
Okay.
Alright. A woman in Connecticut sued her own nephew for hugging her at his birthday party. Now, this is an 8-year-old who apparently hugged her too aggressively, and as a result, Jennifer Connell fell to the ground and broke her wrist. Now, Jennifer Connell, who claimed the 8-year-old boy was negligent when he jumped in her arms, knocked her down, and broke her wrist, testified last week. The jury made it hard for her, or the injury, I should say, made it hard for her to hold a plate of hors d'oeuvres.
Oh my God, don't do it. Okay. So she's done everything wrong in this case, but there's a twist at the end.
There is a twist.
So hold for the twist.
Yes.
Okay. But I want to dive into some of the details because I love them too much.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So she says she comes to his birthday party. That's her 8-year-old nephew.
Yeah.
And he says, Auntie Jen,
I love you.
and he jumps in her arms and says, Auntie Jen, I love you. And then she falls down, breaks her wrist, and is like, wow, you owe me. How much? She sued for $127,000. Okay, and then in the case, she turns around and says to the jury, well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at the New York parties I'm going to, it's hard to hold the hors d'oeuvre plate while I'm at the party. Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do any of this. This is a disaster, right?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like this is the perfect case of an overly litigious society that the U.S. has become. But now the twist.
Yes. So the twist is that she, of course, attempted to get coverage for her wrist surgeries. She's had to have 2 wrist surgeries. She might have to have a 3rd surgery. Her insurance has offered her a whopping $1 in coverage. Okay. So she doesn't know what to do. She has no idea what to do. And so, according to the report, what she wanted to do is go through the homeowner's insurance, but by law, she can't name homeowner's insurance in the lawsuit. So she has to sue an 8-year-old in order to get the money that she needs for her wrist surgeries.
And this is because of a Connecticut law that says that the homeowner's insurance company could not be named as a defendant.
Yeah.
But that's part of the point of homeowner's insurance. Now, look, if you wanted to get into that case, should the homeowner's insurance pay for this? That's a good case. And I don't know which side you'd come out on. I still probably would rule against it, right? But you'd have to go through the case. Does the insurance cover it? Does it not cover it? What kind of accidents at the home does the insurance cover? But she's not allowed to make that case. So the only way she can get money for all the surgeries is to sue the person who actually committed the injury, which happens to be her 8-year-old nephew, right?
Yeah.
So they put her in a position to have to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so that law isn't right in the first place.
I feel terrible for all parties here. Like, I want to be angry at her for suing an 8-year-old. Okay, by the way, the jury ruled against her, so she's not getting $127,000.
Oh, it took like 20 minutes. They said one juror was laughing throughout the trial and laughing while they were reading the verdict.
Like, wrinkling her nose,
Right. But they don't tell the jurors about the law that says that you have to sue someone in your own family to get the homeowner's insurance if you're visiting your family.
Oh, God,
right?
I feel terrible for everyone involved in this. But my biggest issue, of course, is with her health insurance. Like, I don't know what the details are for her health insurance. No idea. Okay, I don't know if she has an HMO, PPO, what's her coverage situation. But we live in a country that if you don't have sufficient insurance, okay, and you break bones, they're going to offer you $1? Okay, so what's the point of me paying you a monthly premium for your bullshit insurance? So you give me $1 when I actually need to use you? Look, I know from personal experience. Recently, I needed to use my insurance for something, okay, a little health scare. And I have a PPO. I have good insurance. And you want to know what they pay? Very little, okay? I had to pay a lot of money out of pocket for something recently. And that's with good insurance. And I'm lucky that I have a job that pays me decently so I have something saved so I can pay my medical bills. What do people do if they don't have any savings? They're screwed.
No, they just sue their nephew.
This is so sick. We live in a sick country, okay? Even with the Affordable Care Act, even with all of that fight that the Democrats put up to give people access to affordable care, we still have nothing close to affordable care.
And in the case, her attorney had to claim, in order to try to win the case, that a reasonable 8-year-old under those circumstances would know or should have known that a forceful greeting, such as the one delivered by the defendant to the plaintiff, could cause the harms and losses suffered by the plaintiff. A reasonable 8-year-old should have known that if he hugged his aunt saying, "I love you, Auntie Jen," then he could cause serious injury and he should be liable. This is the absurdity that they have forced people into. And then, I don't know if the lawyer intended it or not, but then he ended it by saying, she didn't have a choice. Her hand was forced into suing the nephew.
That sounds like a Cenk Uygur.
Wang, 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 wang. And the whole story is a schwang, wang, wang, wang. None of this should have ever happened in the first place. And I primarily blame the 8-year-old.
Poor 8-year-old. He must feel terrible, by the way.
He had to come in with his dad into court and be like he's the defendant. And he must be so confused when he says, my aunt hate me? Does she not hate me?
What would you do in this situation?
If I was her?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I would go ballistic on that 8-year-old. I'd be like, okay, you want to break a wrist? Is that how you want to play? You want to play dirty? Go time. No, you can't sue your own nephew. I know you're in a tight spot. You just can't do this. It's not like it looks terrible. It's not right. It just got screwed. You should petition Connecticut to have a decent law on when you can sue when you could actually take homeowners insurance to court.
Dude, I don't know if this sounds pathetic, but I feel like I would much rather try to do crowdfunding for this than to...
It's not going to work. What is she going to... Like, this got her a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Because it sounds so
negative
absurd.
attention. She's getting death threats.
I know, of course.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But if she hadn't done this, she would have had no attention. If she does crowdfunding, she'll get $12 from her nephew.
Yeah.
That'll be it, okay? Say, I feel bad, Auntie Jen. Here's my piggy bank. No.
By the way,
no, maybe the 8-year-old's a brat.
This has been dragging on for 4 years. You're the worst. He's 12 now, so this has been going on for 4 years.
Why does my aunt still hate me?
Anyway, moral of the story is, don't get sick and don't break bones in the United States because the richest country in the world will fuck you.
Okay, alright. Okay? Apparently that's the moral of the story.
Yes.
Alright, post-game coming up for the members, tytnetwork.com/subscribe. Bye-bye.